So instead of just trying to summarize and trying to extract the takeaway right away, I stayed for a little bit. This is now, it's saved. And it came from focusing on the details of a proverb. The reason I do this is not to make content. As you can see, like I'm just kind of documenting and showing what happened. I'm not trying to make content when I go through this thinking process. What I want to do and what my goal is to cultivate a rich thought life. Today I want to show you how one verse led me somewhere I did not expect, right? Not by rushing to meaning, but by staying curious. This isn't a polished teaching. It's a walk through my thinking and my process of how to cultivate thoughts and ideas. Now, if you're like me, you're wondering, okay, what tools are you using? So I'm using Sublime as my main, this is my main, if you want to call it, personal knowledge management tool. I like to think of it as a thinking tool. For me, it houses all of my ideas and my thoughts and the quotes that I want to save. It is my digital commonplace book. It's where I create these canvases, these thought maps, just to document my thinking in the moment, from tracing one idea to many ideas. And then also good old GPT. I'll show you how I use both here in this thinking session. So the first thing was I started with the text, not a takeaway or anything. The proverb that I was reflecting on was Proverbs 27:9. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. And at first glance, right, this kind of feels simple, and encouragement feels good, and friends, they matter. But something in the imagery of oil and perfume, just the words, right, it wouldn't let me move on. Like, why oil? Why perfume? What does it mean with, make the heart glad? And so instead of just trying to summarize and trying to extract the takeaway right away, I stayed for a little bit. So let's jump into the conversation with GPT. I put the passage in here, and I told it to kind of break down in the original language what this meant so that I could figure out, because sometimes the translations are not quite accurate to what the original language is. So it helps deepen the idea that I'm reflecting on when I can see this. I'll scroll past this just to kind of go to the first thing that I said. And I said, not only does heartfelt counsel change the atmosphere of a life, it changes the fragrance of a life, the aroma of a life. Now, I got this from reading the words here, just as a fragrance changes the atmosphere of a room, earnest counsel changes the atmosphere of a life. I was drawn to that. I was drawn to this idea here that kind of complements the original proverb because it resonates, right? But I just was thinking through it, and I liked how this sounded a little bit better with it changes the fragrance of a life. It's not just the atmosphere, but it's the fragrance, and it keeps to the analogy, the metaphor that we're going with when we talk about the original. And that's where this new card in my library is now. Just as incense changes the atmosphere of a room, right? Heartfelt counsel changes the fragrance of a life. This is now a card in my library. I'm going to open it up, and now it's in my library. It's in Sublime. It's now showing me related ideas to this idea, but I just wanted to show you that this is something that I can come back to, right? It's something that I can reflect on. It's in a couple of different collections in Sublime. It's in my God Notes collection, which are just ideas and thoughts that I save and I get from reading the Bible. A Life of With collection, which is a reminder, all these ideas and reminders to live life with other people and to live life with God. Then Loving Conversations. I want to be better at having deep, loving conversations. So these are this idea is living in all of those collections, and it will pop up again, I know it, in a future thinking session. But this is now, it's saved, And it came from focusing on the details of a proverb, right? If we go back to the proverb, let's go back to the proverb here. Oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. So I have it documented here in a visual way, just to show that this thought came from reading this. And I also put it inside the card too, right? Read Proverbs 27:9, so that it gives me context of where this came from. And also you see here a thought from reading Proverbs 27:9. It doesn't matter how you do it, but it's just a little bit of a breadcrumb to let me know, hey, where did this come from? In addition to seeing it inside of this canvas, I can see it inside the card too. Let's keep moving. I was reading through, because this is going back and forth, right? It's a to and fro conversation. But I was reading through this blurb right here after I said that not only does heartfelt counsel change the atmosphere. I was reading through this, and I just had a thought that this is how this is number one. This is how I can be a good friend. But it's a mark of a good friend whenever they offer counsel that is thoughtful and they are engaged in the conversation. It's heartfelt. It's not surface level, right? They don't just tell you what you want to hear. There's another proverb about that too. But I added my thoughts right as I was thinking them into this conversation because I didn't want to forget them. And this is not to say that I'm going to use this. It's just a way for me to document, okay, what am I thinking right now as it relates to what I'm reading in this conversation? And so it starts coming back with a few things. A good friend does these things. And then it got to this line. Here's the quiet test. Do their words merely affirm your desires, or do they tend your becoming? I really liked that. And so I said, going off of that, a true friend's words do not merely affirm your desires, they tend your becoming. Right? And that's where this became a new card in my library, a new note, a new idea in my library. Again, I added the context, a thought from reading Proverbs 27:9. So you can see, what's happening is I'm finding things that are stirring something inside of me, and I kind of follow that. And that's happened twice now in this conversation. And then I had a question, like, why do oil and perfume make the heart glad in this context, right? I wanted to kind of know more about why the author, because oil and perfume had more meaning than the surface level of it smells good and, it's used in cooking and stuff like that, right? So I was reading through this and something caught my attention. Number 4, they prepare a person for presence. Incense especially is tied to worship. It basically is saying, pay attention, something meaningful is happening. Now, when I read that, my mind kind of started associating meaningful moments in the Bible with oil, right? And with fragrance. And so I started jotting down my ideas and my thoughts related to that. How Samuel poured oil on David to anoint him as king. Mary poured perfume on Jesus. And this is making the heart glad, right? It's kind of a unique phrase, to make the heart glad. But it's not just, it smells good. That's the surface level. It's more than that. And gladness in the original language is not related to pleasure. It's related to meaning. I mean, these moments right here were meaningful. They were full of meaning, which led me to like this idea that gladness doesn't require comfort. It requires meaning. And there's a connection there between, the sweetness of a friend, which is the word sweetness in the original language here is often pointing, or can point to like honey, and honey is extremely valuable, or it's extremely nutritious and good for you, right? I started thinking about that, like the difference between something that lingers and something that doesn't linger. And then I thought, well, that's an air freshener, right? Air fresheners are on the surface. They don't linger like incense or fragrance or oil. They don't linger like a friend's words do in your mind and in your heart. And I think that was now this began a whole other trail, right? Because there's an analogy bubbling up as I was considering this idea of honey and meaning and lingering, things lingering. I don't know why. I don't know why, but it popped in my head that air fresheners, they don't linger. This is a surface level thing. It's a quick fix, and I think that it helps even to think about that in this context, right? Of oil and perfume make the heart glad, and the sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. Like the words of somebody who is close to you, heartfelt words that are meaningful, that may actually cost them something, time and effort and energy to think about what can I say to this person, what question can I ask to this person that I care about. There is something that lingers because of that. It's not just an air freshener that is a quick fix. And so I started thinking about this idea of air fresheners, and now I have a whole nother note card in my library on incense, not air freshener. And this is thoughts while reflecting on Proverbs 27:9. Again, having that anchor there so I know where it came from. A good friend doesn't spray the room and move on. They bring something costly, they pour it out, and it lingers. Surface words work like air fresheners. They mask discomfort, offer quick relief, and then disappear. Maybe they're useful, but they're forgettable. And then, counsel in this context, true counsel is different. It's more like oil or incense. It enters slowly and it settles in the air. It clings, right? Long after the conversation ends, their words are still with you, and they may rise unannounced on a walk, and they may return in the quiet before a decision, softly reframing a hard moment. They don't just make you feel better, they give meaning to what you're carrying. A true friend's words don't merely affirm your desires, they change your becoming. And you'll know the difference by what lingers. And then I was like, well, I'm going to use Sublime and go a little bit further here, because Sublime does have a feature where you can see related cards. And so these came from that. I pulled up the related cards feature, and you can see that it's pulling up the, a few things that I've already put in. I don't need to bidirectionally link anything. It's going to pull it up for me. Part of the reason why I have these anchors here of Proverbs 27:9 and all these cards is so that when I do use the related cards in the future, or when I'm searching Proverbs 27:9, these cards will show up for me. And that way, it's all tied to this anchor of a keyword of Proverbs 27:9. So these cards are not going to show up now because I've already added them. But I thought it was really cool. We have this one from Jasmine Wang. She says, one of my closest friends says his love language is deep attention, which I love that. When I'm confused about a situation, he listens to what I have to say, directs me with careful questions, and then goes away for a few hours. Eventually he comes back with a question or framing that slices through my fog. I treasure his speech deeply, the attention that undergirds it stands in sharp contrast to the hastily shared words and online takes generated against a backdrop of common knowledge that attention is both scarce and low quality. I could go off and do more on this, and I could kind of take this and run with it and keep going, because I feel I resonate with that a lot, obviously, because I added it. And then there's this quote from the book, How to Know a Person, The Art of Seeing Others Deeply and Being Deeply Seen, from David Brooks. These are now they're in my library, but they weren't in my library before. They were in somebody else's library. They saved this quote, and it's now showing up because I decided to stick with one idea and stay long enough so that an idea, a thought would come up that I could add to my library, and now it is surfacing these other ideas that I don't know that I would have found. So David Brooks says that the really good confidants, the people we go to when we are troubled, are more like coaches than philosopher kings. This ties in well with something that I read, the leadership coaching from Tony Stoltzfus. That's one of my favorite books. Love it. They take in your story, accept it, but push you to clarify what is it that you really want, or to name the baggage you left out on your clean tail. They ask you to probe into what is really bothering you, to search for the deeper problem underneath the convenient. And that ties in really well. The sweetness of a friend comes from his earnest counsel. I feel like that's what earnest counsel looks like. It's more like a coach than a philosopher king, which I love. So here's what I want you to notice about the process is I didn't rush to a takeaway, and I didn't want to create an outline, and I definitely did not want to make content. The reason I do this is not to make content. As you can see, like I'm just kind of documenting and showing what happened. I'm not trying to make content when I go through this thinking process. What I want to do and what my goal is to cultivate a rich thought life, so that in conversations with others, I have something to say, I have something to offer, I have something to think about. Right? There's just, I think, so many benefits to cultivating a rich thought life. Anyway, so I didn't do that, but what I did do was I stayed with the verse, and I followed what lingered, and I let the images kind of teach me, and I allowed things to kind of sit. I asked questions, and that is the work. It all comes from attention. So if you want deeper ideas, maybe don't start with like what does this mean, but ask, why does this stay with me? All right? Follow the scent, follow the fragrance, and that's how a verse can turn into this wisdom, and it seeps into your heart and mind. My friend and my fellow idea shepherd, thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me. Links are below for Sublime if you want to check it out. And also, I do have a newsletter on Substack called The Idea Shepherd, where I am talking about how to cultivate a rich thought life. So come join me. I'd love to have you and connect with you. All right, I'll see you on the next video.